What are three things that you would urge the regulators to think about before framing, in your words, better regulation?
One certainly is a better consultative process. You have in the Indian regulatory environment consultative. Draft regulations are put out for public comment. Even before writing regulations, the content that is proposed to be put in the regulations is put out for public comment.
Right.
What happens after that, nobody knows. Who commented? What were the comments? Did you consider them? Did you reject them because they didn't measure up? Did you incorporate some of them? Incorporation is easier to see because the finished product will show you the incorporation. So is there a sense of satisfaction? In fact, my belief is you should put out a consultation. Get the comments, rewrite your proposal, put it out a second time, and then see whether this passes muster.
Absolutely.
And if you think everybody won't agree, there will still be people who have problems. But if you think it serves the greatest good of the greatest number, as Jeremy Bentham said, go ahead and put it in your book of regulations. That, I think, is the one thing that regulators need to do, a more effective consultative process. Alert to that is before you write regulation, you must do something called regulatory impact assessment. We've talked about it for years.
Yes.
Within India, outside India, conferences, RIA gets fairly respectable mention, but post the conference, nobody seems to be giving it much attention. A good point made, and that's it, and the life goes on. But every prospective regulation must pass a regulatory impact assessment to see whether it serves the purpose that it is intended to serve. Is there an existing regulation that can address this? Is it a cost-effective regulation that you don't end up burdening the system with cost? And the benefit is not proportional. The RIA is important. I would urge persons to put in place sunset clauses in all regulations. And the reason I'm saying this is the world is changing. The economy has changed, the world has changed, corporate India has changed, the way businesses are done, in fact, the nature of business, the kinds of business, everything has changed.
Right.
So therefore, after reasonable intervals, you don't want to do it too frequently. Maybe after 3 years, maybe after 5 years, depending on the specifics of that regulation, you need to revisit. And how can you force a regulator to revisit? Have a sunset clause. If you don't revisit this and either extend it or rewrite a new regulation, then this is over. Your powers cease to exist. And that's the best threat to a regulatory organization.
True.
The fact that the powers will vanish if you don't do something. The third is something that the Reserve Bank has done more than once, which is the Regulatory Review Authority. I think every regulator needs to do that. There are several other things that they need to do. Why do people make mistakes? I don't know what the law is. It's written in complex English, right? I want to make an investment proposal. I've lined up everything, my money, my physical resources. I know who's going to run this business, etc. But I have a doubt whether what I'm doing is consistent with the regulator. Is there a place that I can go to and get a sign-off saying, yes, we've gone through what you intend to do and it's all right, so that with a clear conscience and with some confidence, I go ahead and make the investment. That doesn't exist in the securities market. What you have is an informal advisory mechanism. And I think the informal says it all. When you actually make the mistake and somebody tells you, sorry, you stepped out of line, that informal advice is no more than a piece of paper.
True.
So you must give me that confidence. I think these are some of the areas I would look at. And the last one, but certainly not the least important, is capacity building in regulatory. You need people with relevant experience, relevant skill sets. The first being that senior people in the regulatory organization must have themselves been in regulated entities. You must know where the shoe pinches. That's important.
Sure.
You can't come in and make theoretical. The second is that if you have people who have, let's say, a general MBA, and bring that person and say, no, I've got MBAs who are doing that. It doesn't work in the securities markets. You need someone with a special kind.
Mm-hmm.
You need a very large number of lawyers. Because at the end of the day, if you drill down to basics, regulation is about law and accountancy. There's no third element. There must be some psychology, I'm sure, but there's no philosophy or social sciences other than that. And right regulatory temperament. Persons who come into regulatory organizations must have the patience, the ability, and the wisdom to hear both sides before they arrive at a decision. You shouldn't rush to judge. I think broadly, that is what I will tell them. In the unlikely event, if I may divert a little bit, when I first took a flight many decades ago, I think it was in the mid-60s, the announcement used to be, in the unlikely event of a fall in cabin pressure.
Yes.
Nowadays, they say in the event of a fall in cabin pressure. In all these years, I have witnessed only once a fall in cabin pressure. But the unlikely is gone. So let me use that to say, in the unlikely event of they're reaching out to me, this is what I would tell them.
Great. I do hope some of the regulators get to hear this and see this interview, because I think some of the comments you've made are, more than anything else, practical and pragmatic, and actually, spur the cause of better regulation rather than impede it.